Breastfeeding is a skill that takes some time for a baby to master. Ideally, you should wait until your baby has mastered the skill of breastfeeding so that it is established and comfortable before learning a new method of feeding, such as bottle feeding. There is a general window of opportunity when your baby is between 3 and 6 weeks old where his or her innate sucking reflex helps to learn bottle feeding a bit easier than if you waited until they were a little bit older. Some babies older than 10 to 12 weeks might actually reject bottles if they've never tried them before and if they haven't practiced during this earlier window of opportunity. So, even if you are still working on establishing breastfeeding at 6 weeks, you will want to introduce a bottle at that time. There is a common fear among breastfeeding parents that once their baby has had a bottle, that he or she will prefer the flow of the bottle to that of the breast. Because of this, we want to protect the breastfeeding relationship and prevent bottle preference, which is actually more related to flow preference rather than nipple preference. And there are some specific ways that you and your baby's additional caregivers can offer bottles. This is often referred to as paced bottle feeding or baby-led bottle feeding. There are a few components of baby-led bottle feeding to keep in mind, and these are bottle selection, baby positioning, bottle positioning, and the pace of the feeding. And before we get into the bottle feeding video, I just have a small disclaimer. As a lactation consultant, I cannot discuss specific brands of bottles unless I'm working one-on-one with a family, which that's not the case with this online course. And this is due to something called the International Code of Marketing Breast Milk Substitutes, which means that I cannot promote products that take place of direct breastfeeding. I will also be using the term teat when referring to bottle nipples so that there will be no confusion about which nipple we are discussing in this section. Okay, so now that the disclaimer is over, let's go back to the bottle introduction. For bottle and teat selection, you will want to choose a slow flow teat that allows your baby to open widely with lips flanged out. Slow flow is important because we want your baby to be in charge of the feeding. Bottle teats that flow too fast can overwhelm your baby, causing them to take in air during the feeding, which then causes a fussy, gassy baby afterwards. Some teats cause babies' lips to curl under or have a shallow attachment, which can reinforce behaviors that are not similar to breastfeeding. Curled under lips can also cause your baby to drip milk out of the sides of his or her mouth, losing that precious milk you spent so much time pumping out. For baby positioning, your baby should be held in a semi-reclined position. This way, your baby will be an active participant in the feeding, deciding when to suck or swallow, rather than it being determined by the bottle flow. For bottle positioning, the bottle will be positioned almost horizontally so that only half of the teat fills with liquid. This is not going to cause your baby to take in air. Instead, it will help regulate the flow so that the liquid doesn't pour into your baby's mouth when he or she is sucking. As the bottle becomes emptier, you might need to tilt the bottle more diagonally, but this is only when there is a little liquid left. Now for bottle pacing. If your baby doesn't pause on her own to stop sucking and take a few breaths, say after 10 or so swallows, you will want to either tilt the bottle downwards or completely remove the teat from your baby's mouth. This will help mimic what your baby does while breastfeeding. Bottles have a continuous flow while the breast does not, so we will want to make the pacing similar to what would happen while breastfeeding. In the beginning, it should take your baby about 20 minutes to finish the bottle. This will allow their bellies to talk to their brains to know that they have taken in enough food. This is important to keep your baby from overeating by bottle. Babies will often take more in the bottle than they need, causing them to spit up after feeding, as well as create an unrealistic expectation of how much milk you need to pump and put into each bottle. Remember, my son thought he needed 6 to 8 ounces per bottle. Eventually, the process of bottle feeding can speed up just like breastfeeding will. You just have to follow your baby's lead. Once your baby has taken the bottle, you will want to keep bottle feeding as part of the routine so that your baby doesn't forget how to take a bottle right before you go back to work. I recommend offering a bottle a few times a week just to practice this feeding skill. This bottle can be offered by you or another caregiver. That is totally up to you.